Joining us right here on ET Now is someone who knows demonetization inside out. He tweeted yesterday the government was forced to respond to that. But it's time to ask the tough questions to the former Finance Minister, Chidambaram, who joins us right here on ET Now as well. Thank you very, very much for being with us. I will first ask you the very simple question. 15.44 lakh was demonetized, 15.28 has made its way back into the system. How do you read that number?
More will come. There is still currency with NRIs. There is currency with Nepal. And I don't know whether they have already counted the district central cooperative banks currency, which they had earlier refused to take, and now they have agreed to take. So I think it may end up with only about 6, 7, 8,000 crore not coming into the system. And I think that is enough to establish the point, which we've been making for about 9 months, that this was a hopelessly misguided adventure.
I know you choose to call it adventure, but in response to your tweet that did say that, the RBI has got only 16,000 crores, they've spent about 21,000. I'll come to that in just a bit. The finance minister very categorically said, and he responded to you saying, that the idea was never to confiscate cash. How are you going to respond to that? The idea was not to confiscate cash. The idea was to move to a more transparent, less cash, digital economy.
None of those objectives were stated in the Prime Minister's speech on the 8th of November. Be that as it may, why did the Attorney General of India tell the Supreme Court, defending the demonetization cases, that they expect 4 to 5 lakh crore not to come back to the system, and that will be a huge dividend for the government? Question 1. Question 2. Why did the government engage the RBI how to account for the cash that did not come back to the system? And why was the RBI governor forced to clarify that depending on how much comes back to the system, how it should be accounted will be examined later? So I think the government's initial goal was that a lot of money will not come back and they will get a dividend, and the RBI will oblige them by giving them a dividend.
But don't you believe that the premise of that argument was wrong to begin with? Because any amount of a number of notes that were to be extinguished don't translate into profit. That's liability for the RBI gone. So commentary that was made was misplaced to begin with.
It doesn't matter whether they misunderstood the RBI's accounting procedures. But clearly the government had calculated, had factored that a large amount of money, large amount of currency will not come back, and they could somehow reap a benefit out of that. Now, of course, they are trying to backtrack, but everybody knows what happened in the first few days. There were so many statements, so many authored, scripted writings that a huge amount of money will not come back to the system, and therefore government stands to gain.
I'm tempted to ask you, and I know I'm giving you a free bowl to kind of hit a 6 for, but, the government of the day can't be foolish. Why do you believe they did it then?
No. I know governments of the past which have been foolish too.
Do you believe they were just ill-advised? Because
Absolutely.
I'm presuming the intention can't be wrong.
No, absolutely ill-advised.
Okay, but will you at least grant them the fact, and one of the arguments that they're making defending their decision is that the stock of black money has at least been attacked. At least the government has been pointed in the direction of people who did not declare their wealth. They've been forced to declare their money, and the government is going to go after them eventually. Won't you agree with that argument?
No.
Why
On
not?
the contrary, what they have given to the black money hoarders was an opportunity to convert to white money. If there was a stock of black money with someone, and there was an odd 500 rupee note or a 1,000 rupee note with a poor woman in some village in Bihar, that poor lady could not convert her 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees for many reasons. But the guy who had lots of black money boldly went to the bank and converted. Now, are you saying he's a fool? Would he have taken such a large amount of black money and deposited in his account and converted without having what he may have thought, a pretty good idea of how he can defend himself. So I think the hoarders of black money got a very convenient mechanism to convert their black money into white money.
You know, there are two counter arguments I'm going to make to that. The first counter argument is that I'm sure he may have thought in his mind that he'll have a reason, but it is going to point the taxman in his direction and will eventually expand the tax base. That's the government's argument. The other argument that I'm going to make is that, you know, in the past, and you yourself has had a voluntary disclosure income scheme, you know, which allows people to convert their black money into white. That's the compromise that political economies make, don't they?
Voluntary disclosure did not assume that the money was black. It simply said that it is taxable income. If you have not offered it to tax, offer it to tax, pay the current tax rate of 30%, and you will be absolved. It had nothing to do with black money or white money. People who did not...
That was unaccounted for wealth.
Well, it was not taxed. They didn't offer it for tax purposes. And we asked them to pay a tax of 30%. This was a free conversion. Anybody who had a good story or a good defense prepared by his chartered accountant or lawyer went to the bank, deposited the money in various names and converted it. It was in fact cost-free conversion.
But won't you at least grant the government the fact that the whole exercise at least pointed the government in the direction of people who are allegedly holders or were allegedly holders of black money?
That is simply a hypothesis. Ultimately, government has to prove its case. Now, the statement they made, they have detected 17,526 crore of alleged undisclosed income.
That's right. Yes.
Well, that's a pittance if you take it as a proportion of the total income tax collection. But let's assume 17,526 crores of undisclosed income. Even applying the maximum tax rate, that will fetch them about 5,100 crore. But final, there will be an assessment, there will be an appeal, there will be a further appeal to the tribunal, there will be further court proceedings. Only when the final court proceedings are over, we will know how much of this income was actually undisclosed income and how much tax they collected. I won't be surprised if out of 17,526 crore that they claim, and the calculated tax should be 5,100 crore, they end up collecting about 1,000 crore.
You know, sir, while I know you want to dispute everything that the government has said, and you have been a sharp critic of demonetization,
I didn't say that.
But wouldn't you agree with me that it's led to a mindset change? At least people are wary. People are at least scared to hoard black money now.
Has it? Now, please tell me, what was the money that was found to be distributed in the R.K. Nagar constituency by-election caused by Ms. Jayalalitha's death? An election was countermanded. Income tax found a paper which showed how much money had been given to how many persons for distribution in how many booths. Was that money black money or white money? Did they have any fear about hoarding black money or distributing black money or using black money? And all these rallies that are being held, are they being financed purely by check? Is every expenditure in connection with the rally supported by a check payment? I mean, don't deceive yourself. There is any amount of black money sloshing in the market today, and a lot of activities are still being financed not by check but by cash.
So no part of you believes that people who did hoard black money and have of course now conveniently converted it to white are scared. The whole chalta hai attitude of not paying tax, you don't think that has changed at all?
It may have changed for ordinary people who have not disclosed small amounts of
But
income.
isn't that important as well? Because
It
I'm
is
ordinary and I
important.
pay a lot of tax.
It is important. Nobody says that. It is important. But the guys who generate black money, see, I had in one of my columns listed the sectors which generate black money.
That's right.
The sectors which generate black money, there is no evidence that they have stopped generating black money. It slowed down for a month or two, maybe until February or so. But I think since there is a need to generate that black money to finance a number of activities, I think the generation of black money continues.
So when the stock has been attracted, the process hasn't been.
The stock was attacked and ended in a defeat for the government.
Mr. Chidambaram, I think in a direct attack to what you said yesterday, the finance minister very categorically said that people who have not taken a conscious call on attacking black money while they were in power have no authority to speak right now. It was obviously a direct attack on you because the government of the day insists that the Congress party, who had you as finance minister, did not take a concrete step to attack black money. Now we can discuss and debate whether this was a success or a failure, depends on which side of the treasury benches you sit on, but they believe that they at least made an earnest effort to crack down on black money. You did not. That's the allegation.
Let them publish year-wise, from say 2004 or even going back to the Vajpayee years, 1999. Let them publish year-wise number of income tax searches, amount seized in those searches, amount detected as undisclosed income, and number of adjudications started. Let them show the year-wise numbers on these 4 or 5 heads. You will find that there's a secular increase in the number of cases. There's no dramatic increase as a result of demonetization. Every government, under every government, the IT department has conducted a certain number of searches. Under every government, IT department has seized cash, has detected alleged undisclosed income, has started adjudication proceedings. This is nothing new. Besides, the Liechtenstein list was received in the UPA tenure.
That's right.
The list from France, Switzerland was received in the UPA tenure. And please ask, the gentleman now is the Chief Vigilance Commissioner. He was the member investigation. These lists were examined in the UPA government, notices were issued under the UPA government, and prosecutions were started under the UPA government. The gentleman is there still in the service of the government. Now, contrast that with the Panama Papers. Now, why have the name papers? Why has prosecution not started in those cases? But I think all this is good for scoring debating points. Every government has taken action to detect undisclosed income.
So you are disputing the fact, I'm just going to move back to economy and the fiscal impact of this. You are debating and disputing the fact that this is going to expand the direct tax base at all.
I'm not disputing it. The direct tax base expanded under the UPA at a phenomenal rate. Look at the increase in the income tax and corporate tax collections in 2005, 6, 6, 7, and 7, 8. So what is new about it? Rise in the tax collection by 14 to 20% has happened in the past also.
You know, one of the objectives, and I kind of agree with you that the goalpost kept changing every time the narrative changed. One of the objectives that was stated was that this is going to lead to a less cash, more transparent digital economy. I know the Parliament panel has a view on this, and I kind of did glance through the draft report that has been prepared, and it says it's coercing digitalization. But as a former finance minister, won't you agree it's good to be a less cash economy? It's good to be a digital economy. It's more transparent. I know cash is the lubricant you've said that oils the economic machinery, but isn't it good to be digital?
Nothing wrong in persuading people to use less cash and move to more non-cash transactions. I support it. But the fact is, in many advanced economies, cash use is still 50 to 80%. I have no problem at all with pushing people into using more non-cash transactions. But look at the numbers. In November 2016, non-cash, that is electronic payments, was 94 lakh crore rupees. I have numbers up to May of 2017. It is 94 lakh crore rupees. There was a spurt in December and February and March, but it's come back to the normal 94 lakh crore rupees.
As more cash was available in the system.
As more cash became available, they went back to cash. I'm not saying that you should discourage the use of cash. And I'll tell you a way out. The best way to discourage use of cash is to limit currency notes. The highest denomination should be 500 rupees and no more. In US, the highest denomination available to the people is $100. In the UK, it is £50.
That's right.
Keep the denomination, highest denomination to 500 rupees. More and more people for the larger transactions will begin to use non-cash, and the smaller transactions will be
There's
done
quite a
in cash.
dichotomy there, because if you actually see the data, 2,000 rupee currency is what, 50.2%.
50.2%.
That's right. And,
It
500 and above, which is 500, 2074.3%.
Which only shows that the
Yeah.
government did not have clear objectives. It did not look into the problem in all its dimensions and set for itself clear objectives.
So while we are saying that cash is back to being king again, how do you explain the volume of cash that has gone down by almost 17%?
That is because you have printed less currency and supplied less currency. That doesn't mean there is no demand for currency. See, please understand, even today, 20-25% of the ATMs don't function. They've either been closed down or they are non-functional. Or ATMs that are functioning dispense cash only for about 2 hours a day.
I'm going to talk about fiscal implication next, but I quickly want to touch upon the point of how this has brought the informal economy into the fold of the formal economy. One of the stated objective was we want to merge the formal and the informal economy. You don't think they've been successful in doing that?
Not through demonetization. Demonetization is not the answer to merge the informal and the formal. In previous interviews, I've explained that in a country where there is legitimate non-taxable income, agriculture income, charities, northeast, tribals, legitimate non-taxable income coexisting with taxable income.
That's right.
The flow between one sector to another is constant. It takes place in a 1,000 rupee note. It may even take place 20 times a day. It'll move from one hand to another, depends on whose hand the 1,000 rupee note is. It is either black or white.
I know you've said that it's superfluous, but if I was just going to talk to you about the fiscal implication of this move, and obviously the government had budgeted for a larger dividend, got a lot less.
30,000 crore less.
I know, and I know.
I think you should put that number out.
30,000
Your viewers should know.
59 crore rupees, which is almost half of what it got last year.
And no, half of last year.
And
but
less
in
than
terms
the
of
budgeted
the
amount.
terms of the projected increase, the loss is about
Projected was
50,000 crore.
yes,
50,000
exactly.
crore.
So it is a lot less than what the government had also budgeted for. But I think a more granular analysis of that number will also tell you it's not on account of demonetization alone. There were liquidity operations that the RBI had to do, which of course was partly due to demonetization, but partly also due to the forex losses.
No. Wait a minute. Larger deposits,
Yes.
larger interest payments,
True.
that hit into the profit.
True. Yes.
That is directly related to demonetization.
Yes.
And then the expenditure, they're only counting the actual printing. It's not the actual printing. It's printing, distribution, recalibrating ATMs,
And destroying old notes
and
that they've
collecting the old notes, counting them, and destroying them. All of that has a cost. And I think one of the think tanks calculated the cost of demonetization and said it would be some print on cost of demonetization, and gave a number. It said that
about 21.
1,28,000 crore, of which the government and RBI alone has to bear a cost of 16,800 crore. So I think government is understating the cost of this completely misguided adventure.
But you don't think a part of this also has to do with, I mean, the dividend is also less on account of the fact that there was excessive appreciation of the rupee on account of forex losses. So it has also to do with that. It can't just entirely be blamed on demonetization.
Maybe, but the rupee has appreciated in the past years also. Rupee has depreciated in the past years also. So those are common factors. The uncommon factor is demonetization and in the surge of bank deposits.
What about the counterfeit currency? I know,
What have they found?
No, they haven't found anything. But the counter argument to that is, if I knowingly had counterfeit currency, would I go and deposit it in the banks? And perhaps it never made its way back in the banks then.
Apparently, in that rush, counterfeit currency has also been converted. Because
But
earlier,
look at the number,
remember,
0.0007%.
earlier, the NIA and one of the Calcutta think tanks calculated the fake currency is about 400 crores.
And about 70 crores added annually.
And now what have they found? They found the counterfeit currency is about 0.00008 or so.
Yes.
I mean, the way to deal with counterfeit currency is the way that all governments have traditionally dealt with it. periodically, once in 2 or 3 years, you redesign your currency note, add new security features, and say currency notes printed before a particular date will no longer be legal tender. That will effectively neutralize a large part of the counterfeit currency. That's the way it's done the world over.
You know, now that this is done and dusted and now that the figure is out and there's no longer a suspense, who would you blame for this misadventure? The government of the day or the RBI?
No. I think you should blame the opposition for bringing out the misadventure. What kind of a question is that? I'm not even worried about the misadventure. I'm appalled by the gall with which they are continuing to defend it as a great economic act. Why are they doing it? Why don't they simply say, yes, we had certain objectives. Unfortunately, not all of them have been realized to the extent that we expected it to, but they are sub-objectives. There are other benefits that have come as a result of demonetization, and therefore we will be more careful in the future. Why don't they have the grace to say that?
Which government in the past has said so?
Oh, I can think of several governments which
Mr.
have admitted.
While I agree with you that, you know, while I will cut you slack that you will obviously attack the government of the day, you are a member of the opposition and a very active member. What about the RBI's role in this entire thing? They are the monetary management regime.
Shameful. Please read the letter which the government wrote to the RBI on November 7. 3 objectives. Promptly, RBI, without calling a board meeting with proper notice, well-researched background paper, an agenda, promptly on the 8th of November at about 5:30 in the evening, recommends demonetization, and demonetization is announced at about 8 o'clock in the evening. Now, why did the RBI do the bidding of the government in less than 24 hours?
I mean, with whatever little information that I have at Meher, I can tell you that Urjit Patel's predecessor, Raghuram Rajan, put his foot down on this. He was asked apparently in February of last year, and he said, there is no way we can do demonetization, but if we have to, we need to put certain conditions in place so that it's a smooth transition.
I know that.
But shouldn't
In fact, I had hinted that in one of the
So shouldn't you be
interviews.
criticizing the RBI instead of the government?
I have.
The government was trying to put its political agenda forward.
Yesterday's tweet, I said, it is shameful on the part of RBI to have, quote unquote, recommended the demonetization. I think an independent monetary authority should have stood its ground and said, you have made a request, let us examine the implications, let us do some research, let us put together a background paper, we will discuss with the government and then take it to the board. RBI should have clearly asked for at least a month to study the proposal of the government, assuming the proposal was first mooted on November 7, 2016.
If I may ask you a quick question on politics, while you and I and economists...
It's related to demonetization.
Of course, related to demonetization, while you and I and the economists can turn around and, you know, we will perhaps discuss this threadbare and debate and denounce this, but the common man who's actually suffered, who's actually queued up for hours on end for his own money, seems to have rewarded the BJP. The BJP has won election after election despite demonetization. How are you going to explain that?
How do you come to these facile conclusions?
It has been one of the factors.
Wait a minute. 2 elections were held, well, actually 5 elections were held on the same day. The BJP scored a resounding victory in UP. Therefore, you can conclude that the people of UP accepted demonetization, which is a wrong conclusion because elections are not single issue.
One of the factors.
But on the same day, the people of Punjab resoundingly defeated the BJP. The people of Goa, the people of Manipur pushed the BJP to second place and the Congress to first place. So how can you draw a facile conclusion that demonetization has been accepted by the people? In fact, the correct conclusion is no conclusions can be drawn on demonetization based on election results.
So when will the jury on demonetization be out?
There is no jury on demonetization. It is a misadventure. It has backfired. It has cost the government a lot of money. It has cost the RBI a lot of face. RBI's credibility is pretty low now. And therefore, do not indulge in these misadventures without deliberation and without consultation.
Why are you tempted to say the RBI's credibility is low?
Well,
is that what...
I think, but this is what I think anybody, any writer, any economist abroad tells us. You see the columns that are written by economists based in London or based in Washington, you will get that sense.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/etnow.